You hit refresh for the third time before your coffee cools. The number is still there. $250,000. Not projected. Not imagined. Not hidden inside retirement estimates or hopeful spreadsheets. Real money. Your money. It took years that felt longer than they should have. Early mornings. Late nights. Promotions that barely felt like victories. Vacations postponed. Purchases skipped. Quiet decisions. Nobody applauded because nobody even knew you were making them. You expected this morning to feel louder somehow. You thought the air might feel lighter. Maybe the sun would shine differently through the kitchen window. Instead, the coffee tastes exactly the same. The refrigerator hums. A neighbor backs out of the driveway. Somewhere, a dog barks at nothing. The world hasn't noticed what happened, but something inside you already has. The strange part is that your lifestyle hasn't changed at all. You're still wearing the sweatshirt you've owned for 6 winters. Your car still waits outside with the tiny scratch on the passenger door. You still hesitate before throwing away leftovers, because wasting food has always felt wrong. If someone walked into your house today, they would never guess your financial life crossed a milestone most people spend decades chasing. That's because the first $250,000 doesn't transform your neighborhood. It transforms the conversations happening inside your own mind. For years, every unexpected expense carried a shadow. A broken transmission, a medical bill, a layoff, a leaking roof. Each surprise forced your brain to calculate how much damage it could survive. You became fluent in invisible arithmetic. Every grocery trip, every restaurant bill, every holiday invitation quietly passed through the same mental filter. Can I afford this? Should I wait? What if something goes wrong next month? You didn't even realize how exhausting those questions had become, because they'd been following you for so long they sounded like your own voice. This morning, one question disappears. Not all of them, just one. And the silence it leaves behind feels unfamiliar. You carry your coffee onto the porch. The breeze is cooler than yesterday. Across the street, an older man waters flowers with the same care someone else might reserve for priceless art. He isn't rushing. He isn't checking his phone. He isn't trying to prove anything to anyone watching. You wonder if peace always looked this ordinary, or if you've simply been too distracted to recognize it. Your phone vibrates. A notification flashes across the screen. The market opened 3 minutes ago. Once, your heartbeat would have followed every tiny movement. Today, your thumb hovers over the alert before sliding the phone back into your pocket. For the first time in years, you realize your greatest investment was never the balance growing in your account. It was becoming the kind of person who could finally stop measuring every tomorrow against yesterday. The truth is, you spent years believing this milestone would give you permission to become someone new, someone fearless, someone effortlessly confident, someone who walked into restaurants without checking prices first, or booked flights without comparing 12 different websites. But real change rarely announces itself that dramatically. Instead, it slips into the smallest corners of your life. One afternoon, your car makes a strange sound, and your first reaction isn't panic, it's curiosity. You schedule the repair before imagining worst-case scenarios. Another day, a close friend calls because his hours were cut at work. You listen without secretly wondering whether helping him will leave you struggling later. Your decisions become less defensive. You begin choosing from possibility instead of fear. That shift is almost invisible from the outside, yet it changes everything. Money has always been measured in dollars, but security is measured in seconds. The seconds between hearing bad news and feeling your stomach drop. The seconds before sleep when your mind searches for problems to solve. The seconds spent staring at bills before opening them. When those seconds become quieter, life becomes larger. You notice things you used to rush past. The smell of rain before a storm. The way your mother pauses before saying goodbye on the phone, hoping you'll stay a little longer. The laughter of strangers at a nearby table. None of those moments appeared because your account grew. They were always there. Anxiety simply made them too expensive to notice. You think about the younger version of yourself. The one convinced happiness lived somewhere beyond the next promotion, the next raise, the next investment milestone. He imagined success as a destination with a finish line. He couldn't imagine that the finish line would quietly become another starting point. Because once survival loosens its grip, a different question appears. Not, how do I make more? But, who am I becoming while I make it? That question follows you through the rest of the week. At work, people argue over titles, office politics, and recognition. You still care about doing excellent work, but the desperation feels different now. You realize how much of ambition was built on trying to outrun insecurity. The money didn't erase your drive. It separated your purpose from your fear. Friday evening arrives. You stop by the grocery store on your way home. An elderly cashier smiles as she hands back your receipt and says, "Enjoy your weekend." Normally, you would nod without thinking. Tonight, you actually look up. Her smile reaches her eyes. You smile back. It lasts maybe 2 seconds. Yet somehow it feels more valuable than another green arrow on a stock chart. That's when you begin to understand something no balance sheet can record. Your first $250,000 didn't buy freedom from work. It bought freedom from living every single day as if one mistake could erase your future. The weekend passes quietly, but your mind doesn't return to the numbers the way it used to. On Sunday morning, you open the blinds and watch children riding bicycles down the street. One falls, scrapes his knee, stands up, and climbs back on without looking around to see who noticed. You smile because resilience always looks ordinary while it's happening. Maybe that's why the biggest financial milestones are so easy to misunderstand. They don't arrive with fireworks. They arrive with fewer invisible fears. Monday begins like every other Monday. Your alarm sounds before sunrise. The coffee brews. Emails begin piling up before you've finished breakfast. Someone complains about a project timeline. Another person insists a meeting could have been an email. The world hasn't become less chaotic, simply because your account reached a new number. But something unexpected happens. You stop confusing urgency with importance. You answer what matters. You ignore what doesn't. For years, every demand felt like a threat, because losing your income felt like losing your future. Now you recognize that not every fire deserves your oxygen. During lunch, you walk through a nearby park instead of eating at your desk. An older couple sits on a bench sharing a sandwich. They laugh over something too quiet for anyone else to hear. Neither of them seems concerned about impressing the world. They simply look grateful to be sharing another afternoon together. You wonder how many people spend decades chasing wealth only to discover they were actually searching for enough breathing room to notice moments like this. Later that evening, you open a drawer looking for batteries and find an old notebook instead. Inside are handwritten goals from years ago. Pay off debt. Build an emergency fund. Reach 100,000. Reach 250,000. Every milestone has a small box beside it. Every box is checked. You stare at the page longer than expected because something is missing. There isn't a single goal about calling your parents more often. Nothing about spending Saturdays with friends. Nothing about protecting your health before it becomes something money can't repair. You spent years planning your finances with incredible discipline. You rarely planned your life with the same intention. You close the notebook without adding another financial target. Not because ambition disappeared, but because ambition finally has room to mature. You still want to build wealth. You still invest. You still think long-term. The difference is that money is no longer carrying responsibilities it was never designed to hold. It cannot replace neglected relationships. It cannot create unforgettable memories on its own. It cannot convince your children you were present if you were always somewhere else chasing one more promotion. Your first $250,000 changes far more than your lifestyle. It changes the lens through which you see every decision that follows. And once that lens changes, you begin building something even more valuable than wealth. You begin building a life you won't someday become too busy to remember. You lock the front door before bed and pause for a moment in the quiet. Nothing about your house looks different than it did the day before. Yet everything feels different, because your future no longer depends on surviving tomorrow. It depends on how intentionally you choose to live today. Your first $250,000 was never the finish line. It was the moment fear stopped writing your story. From here forward, your greatest returns won't come from compound interest alone. They'll come from the people, moments, and purpose you finally have the freedom to protect.